Hi, you guys. Welcome to this talk on Pluto, which has just entered into Aquarius. And I did do two special videos on this 10 months ago when Pluto first kissed Aquarius and then, moved out. But it was more special because I spoke specifically to the millennials who were born in Pluto and Scorpio because you're getting square from this. If you're born with Pluto in Scorpio, then you should know that this Pluto in Aquarius is squaring off with your natal Pluto. That's important to keep in mind. So let's dive into this a little bit, okay? When Pluto was in Capricorn, this was about challenging the master. And Pluto was not playing around with looking at the toxicity of metaphorical slavery. That level of manifestation created the takedown of some very toxic authority. So Pluto took down an abusive authority where Capricorn is in your chart. And this is a way of saying you made it out of that situation. Some of you just by the hair of your chin. I know you did. So let's take a look and see what abusive authority was ended. If you have Capricorn in the first house, it was some sort of authority over and control over your actual body or your persona, where you could go out. Second house is over your finances. Third house, abusive authority over your words. Fourth house, abusive authority over your home life and comfort. Fifth house, abusive authority over your joy of expression. Sixth house, abusive authority over your work ethic. Seventh house, a toxic abusive authority over your partnerships. Eighth house, a toxic abusive authority over your intimacy, your ability to be intimate. Ninth house, a toxic abusive authority over your traditions. 10th house, a toxic abusive authority over your actual authority. 11th house, a toxic abusive authority over your need for validation or to fit in. And the 12th house is a toxic abusive authority over your own hospitality. You have just completed and ended a season that also required you to have self-assessments whenever Pluto went retrograde in Capricorn, looking at your own acts, your own minor, acute, abusive ways, and having firm correction over them when Pluto was in retrograde. So you really got to pat yourself on the back because Pluto in Capricorn is rewarding you and it is done. There is a new authority in town and you now have the title of that new authority where Capricorn is in your chart. But there's almost a comedy to certain things like in politics right now, where it's like, can we believe that this is the choice that we have to make? This is why now that we are in Pluto in Aquarius, one of the first things we feel is all of these things that seem to be beyond us being very close to us, being very much so within reach. And that's because the ceiling, the toxic ceiling that was the authority with Pluto and Capricorn was broken, right? And so now you can see beyond the need to externalize an authority, to externalize even trust in an authority. There's a whole new way of doing business, okay? So that's what it's like when Pluto leaves. So when Pluto goes into Aquarius, we're seeing this detoxification of hierarchy, right? Because now that we're closer to the people, now that we are closer to aliens, you know what I'm saying? Now that we're closer to especially to people, right? And there's less of an authority. Now there has to still be this sense of Darwinism, this sense of superiority that still wants to take over, because that's just how the laws go, the laws of nature go. And so Pluto moving into Aquarius now says, we're not going to do that, where we're going to have, people who the 1%ers being in dominance and things like that. So we're seeing now that Pluto is going to detoxify hierarchies and your ceiling is broken. And now you see so much beyond you. I saw a quote today that said, "Do crabs think fish fly?" And I was like, that's crazy, because it's like, what if they knew? What if crabs knew? Well, some eventually do know, right? What is beyond the water. And so that's kind of like where we're at, where what we thought was just our ceiling, now you know that there's a ceiling so much beyond that. And so much beyond that is a whole new world. Now, this whole new world has great opportunity, but it also still has sharks that want to eat you, metaphorically. There are things that are, there's always entities that are want to partake. So your new world is exciting, it's new, but it's also scary because now you have more predator, right? And that's why Pluto's energy is so important to humanity, because it helps with that energy, right? It helps to make sure that things become detoxified. So Pluto going through Aquarius now says, all right, the people have been left to fend for themselves. I don't know if you've ever heard that story of the kids who so anyway, that story of the kids being left behind on the beach, it's that idea, the kids are left to themselves. The kids are really the people who now don't have this secure authority to follow, because Pluto kind of left that behind. So as the authority, the organically pure authority, rebuilds itself, we come now into this era where the people have to learn how to navigate for themselves. And so you are now navigating a space where when kids are left alone, what are the dynamics that are going to have to be, right? And so when you see this from a level of society, and these are really adults, not kids, but they're kind of in that way because there's no more authority. So the toxic patterns of Pluto and Aquarius start to show themselves in extreme ways so that you can see it and detoxify it. Some of these things might be people being jealous or intimidated by other people's groups and influences. So it's like you see somebody who is really influential, really powerful with their group, and you wish that, you could have that too. So there's a power play of how do I get that? On the flip side of that, you can have situations where some groups are going to be fairly good, but some groups are thick in amount and they have toxic value system. So these groups are like these cult-like groups going out and bullying other people, peer pressuring other people, just in droves, like gang-like groups onto others whom they deem as less than or suppressed, right? So you can see Pluto showcase some of these more toxic ways. At a core level, everyone is being called to find their influence because that's how you find your power. So it could be a natural just feeling of intimidation of somebody's powerful influence. And usually that's a really good sign. See, Pluto works with our darker emotions. So if you feel your own jealousy, that's normal. The difference is acting on the jealousy versus alchemizing the jealousy and discovering, or the threat or the intimidation, and discovering what is the core thing that you want to create versus reacting to the negative feeling. So Pluto's going to help you alchemize these things, metamorphosize. And I could definitely see Pluto metamorphosizing hierarchies. So possibly certain levels that seem to be lower than get a boost up. And now they're more on the influential side where they were seen at the bottom of the totem pole. You could see Pluto flip the hierarchies in some extents. Also, the value system of the people. So what the people value, mutually value, because Pluto's mutual investment as well. So it's like if the people mutually valued one thing, that one big thing could change and it could be something else, right? So Pluto is really helping people to find and empower themselves to be of influence. That's the visionary that I see with Pluto and Aquarius. It's like this whole new world where everybody's got a responsibility to a group of people that they are empowering. And so there are alternative ways in which we are going to get there, and that's what I see Pluto showing you on your individual path. Maybe you have a group already and you need to have some more firm correctness, or maybe you have nothing and you need to build that. There's different things, different strokes for different folks, but ultimately everyone is looking to empower themselves so that they are no longer a victim to abuse of power. And that's what Pluto is really doing where it's in your chart. natally or transit. Pluto works with the concepts of neurotic versus erotic. So when you're neurotic about something, you might have more of these darker feelings versus erotic, where you're enjoying the pleasure of things. Pluto wants to purify the pleasure of things, because also pleasure of things could be toxic, right? So you can also have groups of people, like, for example, excuse me, but group sex. Some of that could be seen as very pleasurable, and some of that could be seen as pleasure taken too far. So Pluto will not eliminate all of the bad things, but ensuring that where there is pleasure, there is not toxic behavior, right? Pluto may also be really strong in looking at the toxicity of group pleasure, like group sex, polygyny, polygamy, and anything with the polys, because as much as it can exist without detoxifying, where it would lead people down more the disempoweredness. Pluto is going to clean that up, because where Pluto is about, do you feel threatened or intimidated, right? Or are you on the other spectrum where you are power hungry? And both are the far spectrums that Pluto detoxifies within us. So it's really important that Pluto does this in Aquarius, because we're ushering into the age of Aquarius. Now, other things that I see outside of hierarchy and people, people in social classism, things like that, is also geography, in which Pluto may bring up certain things about the planetary. We may hit like an apex of like the planet and its condition, or what we can do to finally detoxify what we're doing to it in order to make things better. This has always been a talk, but this starts to become really important. The other thing is the extra concept of outside of humanity, aliens. These concepts, you see, they're already starting to become more normalized, because Pluto will detoxify anything that is too rigid in its thinking. But there also may be certain toxic ways of seeing things that are different than you, like other beings, and purifying that. It's very odd. Lastly, I think that Pluto in Aquarius could also hit on a very specific belief group, which is atheism. I think that we will be looking at believers versus non-believers, not in a way where like you're right, you're wrong, but really detoxifying certain things, because in the age of Aquarius, people of differences need to still coexist together. So how do you coexist with non-believers? So certain people's behaviors are going to have to change, whether you're a believer and you're too forceful and power hungry to get everyone to believe you in a group, or you're a non-believer and you're trying to cut and detach. So these are the pure detoxifying things that I see Pluto and Aquarius will be doing, plus so much more. But these are the core things that I find may be happening for humanity in order for us to evolve. And for us who are more on the older side of the spectrum, we will really be in a brand new world than what we have known it before. If you guys really like these breakdowns, I'll be doing all of the planetary breakdowns, my take on them. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.